Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone, looking at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Hello and welcome back. I'm your hostess, Kristen, with my co-hosts, Cindy and Amber.
Hello.
And today we are talking about names and what's in a name. So last episode, we were talking about what we were going to talk about this week. And, we were talking about literary vacation and travel. And so I can't believe we didn't mention anything about Shakespeare, but then it dawned on me, oh yeah, what's in a name? It's from Shakespeare. And if you remember reading Romeo and Juliet in high school or watching the play or the movie or anything that has to do with Romeo and Juliet, you may remember this line. What is in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. And what is he saying? Or what is she saying? What are they talking to each other about in that moment, right? Because they're Romeo and Juliet are from two families that are like mortal enemies, right?
Right.
Yes.
And they're not supposed to like each other. They're supposed to hate each other.
Right.
And, they catch each other's eye and then they realize, oh, man, that's my enemy.
Right.
But I kind of like him a lot, right?
Right.
And so literally they're like, what does it matter what my name is?
Or what your name is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You would still be someone I'm attracted to.
Exactly.
You're still the same person,
You're
no matter
still
what
the same
your name
person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's kind of funny because that's actually kind of the opposite of what I was going towards in this episode. We were talking about what makes your name, right? Or does your name make you even?
Yeah.
And do the other names that you acquire over the years become
part of you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of your identity.
That make you unique, like little keychains.
Right.
So do you guys think that what Shakespeare was saying when Romeo and Juliet were talking to each other, does that change the smell of the rose?
Oh, that's a hard one because I think it can. I think it depends. I really do think it depends because, sometimes a nickname or a name that someone calls you is undesirable and it can be harmful to your psyche. And if you absorb or take on that nickname or whatever is attached to that nickname, then it can affect you internally, like somebody calling a kid pizza face or something like that. It hurts. And sometimes kids or somebody calling somebody loser or wimp or
those are names. Yeah.
Those are names. Those are things that people call people.
Categorize. Yeah.
And sometimes people take those to heart and it's damaging. And that damage that they cause sticks with you for a long time.
Yeah.
It's kind of a fine line, but because a name can also give you power.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody calls you brilliant or smart or beautiful or boss lady or whatever, then those words give you power.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we have, it's one of those things where you kind of have to be careful with your words.
Yeah.
And you have to be aware of the words, the names that other people call you, and whether you take them on or not.
And so what I'm taking away from this is it's not necessarily the name, but what you do with it.
It is.
Because
That's exactly
your
it. Yes.
ego is
right.
You're letting your ego.
Because just because someone calls you
pizza
face, hey, pizza face, you don't have to take on that personality of pizza face. You can just roll that off your shoulders and keep going and ignore that. If somebody calls you as a woman the B word, you do not have to embrace that word. Or you can embrace that word
I was
and
about
own
to
it.
say, like,
and if you it depends. So
yeah, it depends
Yeah.
on what you do with it.
it does. It really does depend on what you do with it. Because that, just like that B word, I used to think that was and the reason I'm saying the B word is because we try to keep this clean here on
Yeah.
the podcast, so we don't have to get ratings, or our hands spanked or whatever. But the I used to believe that being called the B word was a bad thing, and I tried not to be a bee. But then I realized it's not just the word, it's who's calling you the word and in what context.
And why you're so concerned with what they think about
Well,
you.
there is that too.
That
That
too.
is another thing because, technically it is nobody else's business. It's not your business what anybody else thinks about you. But I'm not talking about what they think about you. I'm talking
What
about
you
the
think they
words they
think
call
about
you.
Yeah.
And so depending on who calls me that B word depends on how I take it. So if somebody calls me that in a derogatory way, I choose not to accept that. Right? Okay. That's a boundary that I've drawn. I can either let that reflect back off of me, back onto them. Words, words don't stick to me; they stick to you, right? Or, or if it's a friend who's calling me that in a positive way, like in a powerful way, in a way that says you own your power, then I can embrace that word and say, yes, I am, because I set these boundaries and I'm sticking to them. And if that makes me a bee, then so be it. Right.
And I just want to say, I know you are, but what am I?
Right. Well, and that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Whatever you
exactly.
say bounces off me and sticks on you, right?
Yeah.
You remember hearing that when you were a kid. So I know you are, but what am I? Yeah. I mean, sometimes when somebody calls you one of those nicknames or words or whatever, it's not about who you are. It really is about who they are. It is. It really is. Because either they're jealous of you or they're afraid of you or they need to belittle you to feel big themselves. So that's the crux of it right there. I believe so.
So what about names with like your last name? Those names also kind of carry a little bit of weight around with them too. And some
Right.
people take a lot of pride in their last name, and sometimes people might have a little bit of shame with their last name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's true too. There are women who choose to keep their last name when they marry instead of trading in that name for a married name. And then there are women who readily embrace their married surname because they become part of that family. And there's a little bit of both, in that direction. So
Well, as somebody that has lived her whole life with kind of a last name that's kind of a stigma, my last name has an unusual meaning. It's my birth last name Garvin has an unusual meaning, which was unusual that people had gotten it back in the day because normally like last names go with an occupation,
right.
But my last name is Gaelic for rough fate.
Which we discussed on our was it Behind the Clock episode,
Yes.
I believe, back
Yes, so
season 2 or so?
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. Yeah, so as somebody that has like kind of living with the stigma of rough fate,
Hmm.
I have had a lot of like rough things that have happened in my life.
Right.
And just most recently, my dad's only living sibling, his brother, passed away. So all of my aunts and uncles kind of met a rough fate.
Hmm.
And all of my cousins that have died in weird ways, like a hot air balloon accident. And so it just, it kind of seems like I've been running from a rough fate my
Hmm.
whole life, which was interesting. Before we started recording this podcast, Kristen and I were looking up our, name meanings and stuff like that. And I just recently changed my last name to Jones
Hmm.
a year after being married. But, so Jones means son of John, which John means like God is gracious.
Hmm. Okay.
So I went from rough fate to gracious.
Right.
And I was looking up my middle name, which means born again. And I had never, my middle name's Renee, by the way, which means born again. And I had never looked up my middle name before.
Right.
Yeah, so I just thought that was interesting.
That is
Like,
interesting.
go from rough fate, being born again, and now everything is gracious.
Yeah. That's kind of a cool way to look at it. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
neat. What does Jason's name mean? What is Jason?
Oh, I'm going to have to look that one up. Cindy, you have your name book.
Yes, I am looking right now. I have this great name book that somebody gave me when I was pregnant with Kristen, actually, and it's called The Best Baby Name Book in the Whole Wide World, and it has like 10,000 names in it. And I've loved this book forever because I love looking up names and seeing
Hmm.
what they mean and stuff. Let me find Jason. Jason.
Does it mean?
Jason is healer.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. It means healer.
Mythological. He was the hero who led the Argonauts in search of the Golden Fleece. So,
Oh,
yeah.
Jason and the Argonauts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Jason's name means Jason, God is gracious.
So my name is Kristen. It's Christen, which is actually how you spell christen. And like if you christen a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And so it means follower of Christ. And my middle name, Lee, which is actually, I believe, the Leah, which is
That's
like Old English.
that's
Lee.
Leah.
Well, but it's also in that form.
Uh-huh.
It means woodland. It's
Okay.
just like so Lee, and my Leigh means
Uh-huh.
meadow.
Okay.
So, or of the meadow. Sorry.
Okay.
So, my name means follower of Christ of the meadow.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, my name, I think we've talked about this before. I'm Cindy, not Cynthia, not Cinderella, just Cindy.
Cindy, not Cynthia.
Yeah. And there's a story behind that too. But so Cindy is a derivative, obviously, of Cynthia. And that is the moon goddess, the Greek moon goddess. So, and then Lou, my middle name is Lou, Lou. And that is a great woman warrior. So, or a famous woman warrior. So, it comes from the word Louise, which is the famous woman warrior. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Um, the moon goddess and famous woman warrior.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Now the story behind my name, and this is actually in this line, is when my mother decided to name me Cindy Lou, my grandmother questioned her over and over about it. Why would you want to name her Cindy Lou? And they had actually written down some names, and Cynthia Louise was one of the names that they had discussed, but she decided to name me Cindy Lou. And my grandmother just could not understand why they would name me Cindy Lou, because we didn't know anybody named Cindy Lou or Cindy or Lou. So why would you name her Cindy Lou if you don't know anybody named Cindy Lou?
Because you can't make up a name.
Yeah. And so,
But that's what people did. They just named their kids after
they
other
named their
names.
kid after other people, as an honorific. And it's kind of funny because as growing up, I hated my name. I really hated my name. I thought it was so plain, because it was shortened. And I wanted so bad to actually be a Cynthia. It was okay that it was shortened, and you can call me Cindy, but I wanted to be Cynthia Louise because it felt so much more sophisticated than plain old Cindy Lou. And then, growing up, of course, Dr. Seuss has Cindy Lou who was no more than 2 in The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. And so then from my whole life, everybody called me Cindy Lou Who. I hated that. And I wanted to distance myself from that name so far. I could not stand it. But
Oh, yeah, I understand. Book Clueless came out when I was in school. Ambular. So after that movie came out, when I was like in 4th grade, everybody called me Ambular.
Right. And I just
really funny sounding.
It does.
Sorry.
But I hated it. I couldn't stand it. And it wasn't until I was probably in my 40s or maybe even 50 before I embraced the name Cindy Lou. And I was probably in my 40s, and I started, calling myself Cindy Lou Who, or, using that name as an email address or whatever, and being accepting of that. And it's weird. I don't know why. I don't know why I even changed my attitude towards it, but it developed into almost a love of that name, because then my granddaughter Raina started calling me Lulu because of my middle name, Lou. And so I was Lulu instead of Grandma. So I loved that, and I will always embrace that name. So it's kind of funny because a lot of times you think of nicknames, and for me particularly, Cindy Lou Who, I felt like people were making fun of me. And I still get a lot of people who call me Cindy Lou without even realizing that's my actual middle name. They just, Cindy Lou. And so it's just kind of weird.
I never got any nicknames.
No,
my
you
name.
really didn't.
You
And
did
that
in
was
college, KK.
Yeah, and that's really funny because my name starts with a C.
Yeah, I know.
But
The person that started calling you that
Didn't
originally
realize probably.
thought your name started with a K.
Yeah.
But see, the funny
But it
thing
grew
is
on you.
that we intentionally were very careful in naming you and my son Steven to make sure that you couldn't twist it into something weird. Kristen doesn't really rhyme with anything.
It really doesn't.
It doesn't.
And no movie has come out with a weird Kristen name.
Right. And my son is Steven, and he has been he's been called, you could say even Steven or something, but it's not negative. And his middle name is Wallace. He was actually named after my husband's best friends from high school days. And he owed them so many favors, I guess, that he said he was going to name his firstborn son after them. And so we did. and one's name was Steve and the other's name was Wally. And so we named our son Stephen Wallace. So every once in a while he'll get somebody will call him little Steve and Wally. So, or, but, that's about the most that he ever got out of it. So, and like I said, we did that on purpose because I did not want my kids to have negative nicknames at all.
So why did you come up with Kristen? Like what was
Oh,
the story behind that?
Well, her dad, her biological dad's name is Chuck, and his name was Charles. But and so his name was Lee, Lee, Charles, and my name was Cindy Lou. So we had C's and L's. So we decided we wanted to go with CL names or LC.
Okay.
And he had a grandfather who was a Christopher. So it was going to be Christopher Lee or Kristen Lee. So,
well, it's a good thing it wasn't Christopher Lee because the actor.
oh, I know,
Right,
right, yeah.
Oh yeah, my
It could
my
have been
name,
Lee Christopher also. So but
my parents thought that they were having a boy, and they had me named, and I was going to be James William Jr. Will for short.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah. So, and then surprise, girl pops out.
yeah.
And so like they didn't really have any like girl names, and my mom remembered that she had always liked the name Amber because my uncle when he was in high school dated a girl named Amber.
Oh,
And so I'm technically named after my uncle's ex-girlfriend.
I bet that was
Wow.
awkward
Yeah.
for him.
And then also a combination with Forever Amber, which was,
Okay.
a novel that
Uh-huh.
my mom read when I was, before I was born, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
At least, she didn't name me anything like out of the book It, because that's what she was reading when she was pregnant with
Oh,
me.
how
That's
weird.
so weird.
Because I was reading Cujo while I was pregnant with Kristen.
See, that's why Kristen and I get along. That's why we're creepy goth babies, because
Right.
y'all
Goth
were
before I was born.
y'all were reading
I
Stephen
love dogs
King.
too.
Well, and my ex his family had a Saint Bernard named Barney. So yeah,
Barty. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know where she came up with my middle name. She just thought that the name was cool. So she thought my name was cool. I'm not really named after anything, or
yeah.
it was just like a kind of like a, but then again, like it was the 80s and the name Amber was popular. So,
You know what? My grandmother, why would you name her Cindy? Nobody, we don't know anybody named Cindy. I went to school in this little tiny town called New Deal, Texas. You can look it up on the map. It's tiny. And I believe there were 33 students that graduated in my graduating class. Of those, there were 3 of us named Cindy. Now, one of them technically was a Sydney, but she went by Cindy because
That
for
was
whatever
unique for the
reason.
time, probably.
Yeah.
there was
But,
another Amber in my class, and we always did, like, we were in the same campfire group, so we were always together. So my whole life I was called by my last name, and then I went off to college and I had my own identity, and now at my job I'm called by my last name. So that's funny.
Yeah. So, some people rename themselves. So,
This is true.
kind of like you're saying, like you kind of get to go around with different names. You can also choose like how you go by, who you go by, what you
Well,
go by.
That is true. And, a lot of people, they shorten their names themselves. Like instead of being Kristen, they might be a Chris or a Chrissy or whatever. And then, there are people, particularly like trans people, who take on
Change their names,
They change their name completely, even their last names. a lot of times, because they feel like they're being
Yeah,
reborn.
their old name becomes their dead
Their
name,
dead
as they
name,
call it.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so there's and there are other reasons for taking on other names too. Um, there are people who take on stage names and things like that. So, um,
Yeah, and the online identities, online persona names, because
oh yeah, totally.
I have gone by two different online names, which Ambrosia, which was actually a nickname in high school,
Mm-hmm.
because there was a character in The Bold and the Beautiful. Her name was Ambrosia Moore, and she went by Amber.
Hmm.
So, and I was just like, I used to think, like you were talking about Cynthia, I used to think, man, why didn't my mom think of that? Ambrosia. That's such a cooler name than
Yeah, I know.
Amber.
I wonder how many
So,
people dislike their name and
I don't
want a
dislike my
cooler
name, but
name.
yeah, it
Well,
would
I
have been cooler.
disliked mine. I really did. It just felt so plain to me. But I mean, yeah, I was gonna go somewhere and I just
Yeah.
that's what happens when you're the crone. Um,
Yeah, so I thought Ambrosia was cool. So I started going by Ambrosia, at least on online platforms, because I thought it was cool.
right.
And
What
then
was the other
people
name?
started
Well,
calling me
and
Ambrosia.
that's like I said. I started embracing the Cindy Lou Who, you know, moniker because it's an easy way to do one. But I also had another one when Kristen was younger. My husband and I used to play role playing games, and one of the role playing games that we played was called Traveler, and I had rolled up this character that I named Nelda. So she was like this short, stocky, tough chick, for lack of a better way to say it. She's just like kind of mean. And her name was Nelda. And, among our friends that played our games with us, that's what I got called a lot. And, you know, for many, many, many years after we quit playing that game, I was still
Like 30
Nelda.
years.
Huh?
Like 30 years.
Oh yeah, yeah, many many years. So, and my husband also he took on the name of Sir Moog, um, for the Moog synthesizers because he played synthesizers, and he got called Moog all the time. So, yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know, so, like that's why I go back to that thing that I say. Sometimes you're when I was younger and I hated my name Cindy or Cindy Lou, I felt I took those people, making fun of my name by calling me Cindy Lou as a negative thing, and I was ashamed of it. I didn't like it, and it made me feel meek. But when I turned around and learned to embrace that name, it gave me power. And now, I can call myself Cindy Lou Who or Cindy Lou or Lulu or whatever. And I feel empowered by those names. And I think it's, like I said, what you do with it, how you take that name. And,
What you do inside with it.
yeah, it's what you do inside with it.
So a lot of people choose to like pick a name when they have like that new chapter in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously like Prince, he changed his name into a symbol. I don't even know how you do that, but
Yeah. I don't either.
but
Yeah.
I
Well, like,
mean,
how many times has Kanye West changed his name?
but yeah, I mean, like you could go and just say, like I'm no longer going to be Kristen. I'm going to be now, this name. I actually wanted to do that when I was in elementary school. I wanted to go by Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like Chris is also like a girl name too.
Yeah.
But there was already 3 boys in my grade that were always in the same class. Like there was 3 Chris's and Kristen. And so all
Why do
through
they do
all through
that?
elementary school, I wanted to be Chris, and every year I would be like, this year's my year. And then I'd show up to class, and then there would be 3 boys named Chris. And so I didn't change my name because I didn't want to inconvenience the teacher.
Oh, to make it hard. Yeah.
And
Oh,
you
well,
see,
that's
like,
nice,
I
like,
know, but that's me, like a pushover.
You're accommodating.
Or
to,
accommodating, yeah.
accommodating, yeah.
2 years ago, like I had a Sanaya, Denia, Anaya, and Dariah in like one class.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Yeah. And see, for me,
John,
I
Johnny,
would have changed my name to, you know,
Mhm.
Denai, just to make it like easier. I don't know.
Right, right.
But yeah, I always wanted to be Chris, and every year there was the Chris's.
Well, it's never
And
too
so-
late.
I know,
you
right?
know?
Well, and some people do call me Chris, but you know, after a while, I just gave up on it because
Right.
literally that is probably one of the most common boy names
Yeah.
in my age grade. So there was always a ton of Chris's every year. So I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to be Kristen. And then I finally, like, got over that, like, why is my name this name? Does everybody go through that in their life?
I wonder
Yes,
that too.
yeah,
like,
well,
probably,
and not
yeah.
only, you know, not only do you have Kristen and there was all these Chris's, but we did an unusual spelling
Yeah,
of Kristen.
so no license plates for me. Like, there are
Right.
no magnets,
no
no
keychains.
custom keychains.
Yeah.
Literally, like, no manufactured keychains. I'd have to get a custom one. Because
Right.
anytime I go to one of those little kiosks or souvenirs, I look for my name.
They're never
41
never.
years old, and I still look every time
Yeah,
because
I do too.
if I see something with my name, I'm totally going to buy it. And I have never, ever seen anything with my name
in fact,
spelling.
I've only known, I think we found 2 other people whose name,
Yes, I've
2
met,
other females
well,
who were,
I saw one. She was a contestant on Jeopardy.
mm-hmm.
And then the other one was the pharmacist at the grocery store that I used to work
And
at.
there was a teacher at Stevens Elementary
Okay,
School.
I never
yeah.
met her, but
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
yeah. So the pharmacist, I went and I introduced myself, and she just kind of looked at me like, "What the heck?" And I was
Yeah.
like, "You are clearly not really Kristen with a CH and an EN," because any other Kristen would have been like, "Wow, that's so cool." Oh, okay, I take that back. There was another Kristen that I found on the internet,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah,
it
another
was
Kristen
Facebook.
Murray.
Yeah, it was on Facebook, and we talked for like 5 minutes. But it was like, oh my god, that's so cool, you know. And that was the end of that. But yeah, I think whenever I did that name search, there was some website, I can't remember what it was, but there was only 6 Kristen Murrays spelled the way my name was spelled in the United States.
United States.
And I
Yeah.
thought that was pretty
Wow,
cool.
there
Yeah, like kind
quite
of
a
unique,
few Amber
right?
Garvins.
And actually, most of the names CHRISTEN are actually boys.
Oh,
too.
really?
That's a common boy name,
I did not know that
Yep.
because I normally see
but it's Christian.
Christian. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how they pronounce it, Christian. Yeah. So, yeah, but I get Christina, Christine, Christian.
Yeah.
Christy, all the things, but Kristen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all the names. So
And, there's an annoyance in that too. It's like, why can't you remember my name? Or why can't you figure out how to spell my name?
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've literally had relatives spell my name wrong. My
Yeah,
husband,
for 30
my
years.
husband spelled my name wrong before. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. So, you know, now that I'm older, I'm like, you know what? It's kind of cool. Like, I have a name that's common, but it's unique.
But it's unique, yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm cool with it. And it's cool when people actually do say my name correctly. It's kind of like I get to celebrate them for being awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think they like that too, because then they're like, wow, you're really excited about me saying your name the right way. But it's like, it's cool to me, like, to actually be called by name, because, you know, anyone with like a really unique name, you know what I'm talking about, like being called everything but your name
Right.
is common. And so when you actually hear your name off the lips of someone else's mouth, it's like, oh, you know.
Well, and I wouldn't, like you said, you know, you're talking about not liking your name, and I didn't like my name, and Amber didn't like her name. How many people?
Yeah, like really, how many people actually like their name?
Yeah.
I think you go through a phase in your life.
Maybe.
Pretty much
Maybe so.
everybody goes through
I
a
mean,
phase and
you
they
can
just
change
don't
the
like
way
the
you
name.
look. You can change the way you talk. You can change the way you act. You can change the way you think. You can change the way you smell.
Well, you could change your name
You can
too.
change your name, but it's still your name. Like, it was given to you before you were born.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, like your
Or
first
when you were
name, you
born.
have
Yeah.
to like apply and stuff like that to
Yeah.
change
Right.
your
But
name.
it's even if you change your name, it still was your name.
Well, back to changing your name. Kristen had another incidence of changing her name.
Hmm. Yeah, let's
So-
talk about that fun story. So, when I was born, my parents were married, and I had a last name, Carlson.
From that Lubbock country.
Right?
That's what you're sounding
Carlson,
like right now.
right? So,
Carlson.
from Carlson. So, then, my parents got divorced. My mom remarried. I was 4,
Mhm.
right? Okay.
Mhm.
So, barely even know my name, right? Don't even know how to spell it yet, right? Probably just learned how to, I guess. Then my mom was like, "Do you want to change your last name?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to be Murray too." Like,
I didn't ask
knew.
you that. You wanted that.
I know. I feel like I knew like that's what I wanted, right? And so it was like, "Yay, I'm going to change my name." So I was now deemed Kristen Lee Murray.
Mhm.
And I went my whole life Kristen Lee Murray. And got to the nice age of like 16, and I went to go get my driver's license when I was in driver's ed.
Was that when it happened?
That's the first
Okay,
step,
okay.
yes. And then it was like, "Oh, your last name is Carlson." So I was like, "Oh, okay." We never actually like legally changed
We didn't
my
legally
last name.
change it. The schools just let us
They just
use
let me
the other
use
name.
that other
Yeah.
name, and it was not on any of my school documents. Like, it wasn't. So I was just registered like that. Like, they didn't care, I guess. And so then I'm like, "Oh, okay. So my driver's license has this name I don't ever use, but that's cool. Whatever.
I forgot
It's
about
the
the
name I was
driver's
born
license,
with. Yeah.
yeah.
So then I had the driver's license for 2 years, and didn't really strike me. I still went by Kristen Murray, and it was kind of funny. I was like, hee hee hee, I have 2 names. And then when I was registering to graduate, I was already 18, and my school was having me like fill out the forms for my diploma, and they were saying like I had to put Kristen Carlson on my diploma. But nobody knew me as Kristen Carlson. Like, that was my
Well,
secret on my driver's license.
And the other thing was where you were going to stand in the line.
Yes. And so here, let me backtrack to freshman year. My bestest friend in orchestra was my stand partner. We were, the two, in the back making fun and being silly in orchestra while everyone else was playing their music. We were just, making ruckus and having fun. Melissa Mushaka, her last name was M-U-S, and mine was M-U-R. So we would have sat right next to each other. And literally, like, first day of school, we were like, "Hey, we're going to sit next to each other at graduation." And we're like, if anybody else's name gets in between ours, we're going to beat them up, right? So this was like a thing for 4 years because we sat next to each other in orchestra for 4 years. And she was like one of my greatest friends in high school. And I was just like heartbroken to find out like, they're going to call my name at graduation. Nobody's going to know who I am because no one in the world knows that my last name is Carlson.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not going to sit next to my stand partner at graduation. And then my diploma is going to have someone else's name on it because I didn't identify with that name.
Yeah,
And
you had never used that
Yeah,
name.
I'd never used
And
it,
like I
yeah.
said, I had forgotten about your driver's license being that name.
And
that
we
was
just
the only thing. Yeah.
completely forgot.
Even
that
all your medical records were under
everything-
Carlson.
Because it wasn't as like computerized as it is now. Like,
Well, and it wasn't that, this is pre 9/11 also.
Yeah,
So there
yeah.
weren't as, I think even your bank account was,
Mhm.
your bank
All
account was
my
Murray.
stuff said
Everything
Murray.
was Murray.
Yeah. So then I'm like, "Mom." So then we're like, "Oh, we got to rush." And my parents were just like, "We're going to change your name."
Well, we had always intended for my husband to adopt her. He was her dad. He felt like her dad. He wanted to be her dad. But adoption, even of this sort, is not cheap. The
Mhm.
legal fees are often very prohibitive. So, and we didn't want to do just a name change. We wanted an adoption, and we just never were able to afford it. So,
So
that's
you
why
guys-
it never happened.
Yeah, but you guys made it happen like on the fly.
Yeah.
So this was like spring of my
And it
senior
wound
year.
up being an adult adoption
because I was already
because
18. Yeah.
because it was much less expensive to do it that way than
Yeah.
to yeah.
So I go and I get to change my name. Also, that I can have my diploma say Kristen Murray, which, by the way, I cannot find my diploma. I have no idea where my high school
I probably
diploma
have it
is.
Oh,
here
I don't
somewhere.
know where mine's
know.
at either. Mine's
I know
like
all that
somewhere.
trouble for. So, but the funny thing is that now I have like this, like a little bit of confusion because now I'm like, well, my name changed. So I literally still have the court document with my name change order on it, and I carry it with me like in my important documents anytime I go somewhere like where I need to file paperwork with the government. I always take it with me because I'm always so afraid like they're gonna be like, well, you're not Kristen Murray, you're Kristen Carlson. You know, I guess it like made me fear like potentially having like roadblocks, and you know, it's probably why I have like this aversion to getting my car registered and stuff. Because I'm like, oh, paperwork, right? So that was a funny story for me, was just getting my name changed.
Yeah.
You know,
Like really fast.
really fast.
It wasn't just a name change. It was a total adoption.
It was an
but
adoption too, but it was.
we had to do it really fast before graduation. So
Yeah. So there was me, you know, changing my name. It was a new chapter in my life. It was a new chapter in my life when I was younger, but it finally became official as an adult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we were talking earlier when we were talking about names because some people will change their name to their life path number. And you'll pick a name that is the life path, like your birth path or your soul path.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, if your soul path number is a 5, then you will choose a name that numerologically, thank you, coincides with that number. So, the name number set is A through I is 1 through 9. And then J through R is 1 through 9. And S through Z is 1 through 8. And so each letter has its own number correspondence. And you write out your name and figure out what your name numerology is.
Right.
And so I was telling Mom and Amber about that because I had not calculated my name in forever. And so, and I remembered that I had, you know, my first last name and then my new last name. And then I realized, oh, I actually have, you know, another last name. So, you know, with my marriage. So I was talking about how, you know, you calculate your first name, your middle name, and your last name to come up with a number. And I think Amber had pulled up something online. I'll share the link with the instructions to calculate your name number.
Okay.
It's a WikiHow.
Okay.
So I'll share that link so that we can have it heard on the podcast.
Sounds good.
And then I think Amber had pulled up something that she was looking at, kind of giving us the definitions of the name numbers.
Okay, so the page that I was looking at is called Astrology Future Eye, and we will link that as well. And so when you calculate your life path number, which I did a few different calculations. I just did my first name to begin with, but then I realized that you need to do your whole name. And since I've been known by 2 different names, so I did Amber Renee Garvin, and I came up with a 54, which translates to a 9. And so my destiny number is a 9, and so 9s are courageous, humanitarian, and aggressive.
Well,
and I'm just like, oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm aggressive. Yeah.
That's
So-
your full name?
Yeah,
Your
that's my
first,
full
middle,
name,
and
yeah.
last? Okay.
And so then I did Amber Renee Jones, which is my new name. and that translated to a 57, broke which is broken down to a 3,
Mm-hmm.
which is a creative, entertainer, and ideal, which is kind of like
Oh,
what I am
now a
anyway
different,
in
yeah. Mm-hmm.
everyday life. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, and I think it's interesting because when you're talking about these numbers, your life changes when you take on taking on that new name. It is a major change in your life and in your destiny. So you become a different person. You're the same person, but you become kind of a different person. I went from being Cindy Lou O'Neill, single young person. That was a 6. What was that?
Hold on. O'Neill, O'Neal.
No, I've got the number. A 6. What is a 6?
Well, it doesn't have like the full. Oh, so it doesn't have like the definitions of.
Oh, I thought you had the 9 and the.
Well, yeah, I
The
have
3.
like for my number, I was typing in your name so I could get the.
Oh, it you can't just go to the list.
No.
Oh, okay. It's Oneal.
So yeah, so a 6 is a healer, a teacher, and a counselor. That
Oh,
is Cindy Lou O'Neill.
okay.
So when you change your name,
When I change it to Murray, Murray.
yeah, so when you change it to Murray, your life number is a 1,
Yes.
and that is leader, independent, and creative.
Huh.
And then your soul urge number is a 3, which means that you are cheerful and artistic.
Soul urge. What does that mean? Where does that number come from?
Okay, so a soul urge number is also called the heart's desire number, and it is calculated just from the vowels in your name.
And what was mine? It was a 3.
Yeah, your soul urge number is
Did you say it was a 3?
It was a 3, yes.
And what did it mean again?
Cheerful and artistic.
Wow. Okay, that's really interesting. Because I think, yeah,
Oh,
I
that's your
think
number.
I think I am cheerful and artistic because I am an artist. But also it's interesting because that is my numerology life path number, based on my birth number. So
Okay.
that's very interesting.
Do me,
Yeah.
do me.
Okay, well that's really cool, like how that turns out. Your middle name is spelled Leigh, right?
Yeah.
So, Kristen, your life number, as you said, is a 7. Your soul urge number is a 1, which means that you are an accomplisher and you desire leadership.
Hmm.
Which kind of goes with your Enneagram, right? You're a
Mhm.
leader.
No.
No?
I'm a achiever.
Achiever.
I did
Yeah.
I did score
Okay,
high on a leader.
accomplisher and achiever are the same thing.
I scored really high on the leader also. So
Yeah.
But yeah, accomplisher. So yeah, that goes with your Enneagram.
cool. So I'm a 7 or a 1?
You're a 1 for your soul urge. You basically just calculate it with the vowels in your name.
Interesting.
Oh, so that one is just the vowels.
Yeah, the soul urge is just your vowels.
Oh, okay. Huh.
It's interesting because when we were doing looking at our numbers and stuff earlier, I was looking at this chart, the way they have the numbers, the way they chart them out on this grid of 1 through 9, and that is the same way that you chart number letters to create a sigil, or it's one of the ways that you can do a sigil. So you take a phrase or a word, and then you, in that case, you take out the vowels and any duplicate numbers, and then whatever's left, those are the numbers for creating your sigil. But I thought that was kind of interesting that they use that same
Well,
1 to 9 grid.
Well, see, okay, so that's interesting because you can also calculate with just the consonants in your name, and they call that the dream number, which kind of coincides with sigil, don't you think? Because your sigil is kind of like your
It's
personality, your symbol,
or
your
it's your
dream,
symbol. Well,
what
it's,
you're
or
wanting to achieve and strive, and
or that's what you mark things with. That's
Yeah.
what you mark or protect things with, or whatever. So yeah. So the consonants only is what'd you call it? The dream
the
number?
dream number, yes.
That's interesting. That's very interesting.
So if I were to do Kristen, that means that her dream number is a 6.
Mm.
And that in a 6 means impressive.
Huh.
A highly responsible person for in your family and career. And you are highly responsible in your career.
I think so too. Now, when she was younger, that was not, but
Because I'm an achiever.
well, and back
Ultimate
then,
achievement.
you had a different last name, so
Right.
No.
Is that
There you
Hessler
go.
or Murray that you did?
I did Murray.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
Do you want
Okay.
me to do Hessler?
but you were technically Carlson.
Yeah. That was Carlson back in the day.
So Cindy, that means that, let me go back to your page.
Okay.
That means that your dream number is a 7.
Okay.
So that means that you're impressive as secretive and knowledgeable. So you have an
I am the crone.
intelligent and mystic personality.
Oh. I am the crone.
And it also says that you are a very spiritual person.
I am.
I didn't even look at my soul urge number and my dream number. I guess I better go look.
Those are very interesting.
I'll just look at Jones since that's my current name. Yeah, my soul urge number Well, that's weird. My soul urge number is a 33, which normally that would translate to a 6. So, but it would be like, since it's a 33, that means it's a master number with the traits of a number 6, and it means I'm responsible.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm pretty responsible.
That's interesting.
And
because when I calculate my name, Cindy Lou Murray, it's actually a 33 also. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so 33 means responsible. And so my soul urge number and my dream number are both 6s, since 33 actually translates to 6, and they both mean responsible. So I guess I'm double responsible.
Joke's on you.
Joke's on me. Hey, I'm a teacher. I am pretty responsible.
You are pretty responsible when it counts.
You are able to respond, but do you? No.
Yes, you're right. I'm responsible when it counts.
Well, that was fun. I like doing that kind of stuff. I have like this
I
whole
do
piece
too.
of paper full of numbers.
I know, I
and
do
letters.
too. I'm making notes over here too.
Those
I love those
scratches.
things. Whether you believe in them or not, they're just kind of fun to play with and read into them what you will or whatever. I just thought it was interesting because when I was saying earlier, if you change your last name, you change your path. And technically you do. The person I was when I was Cindy Lou O'Neill is a very different person than the person I am today as Cindy Lou Murray. And I look at that, but I look at that that number 6, and she was talking about it being a healer, a teacher, a counselor, and I'm like, not so sure about that. Not when I was, 16, 17,
But
18
you
years
were
old.
a older sibling that
Well, I
your
was an older
siblings looked up to
sibling.
you.
Um, and I did, consider uh, being a counselor or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, that really wasn't where I was. So I don't know. I'd have to read more about it. But I think that, as a number 1, as Cindy Lou Murray, leader, I've definitely been in leadership positions time and again. I am independent, and I think I'm pretty creative because I'm artistic and I'm an artist. So I think that's pretty accurate. What about yours? Did you feel like yours were?
I mean, yeah. Um, to be a leader and being responsible, but I mean that's just like a small little piece of me. So
Well, that's true.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then, there are other parts of you too, like your Enneagram numbers and your
Right.
birth
Right.
birth numbers or whatever. So,
Well, that was really fun, ladies. I'm sure that there's lots of facets of the name that we probably didn't even get close to
oh
covering.
gosh, how could you?
But if anyone else does their name numerology, would love to know if your name matches or if you've ever had a nickname that
Or if you know
you
anyone named
learned to
Kristen
love or
Lee
you
Murray.
hated. Yeah, right. Or if you know anybody with the same name as me, like totally tell me because I want to meet another Kristen that's just like me. That thinks it's cool that there's someone else named the same. So,
Right.
But anyways, what are we talking about next week?
So next week we're talking about some of our favorite fast food and chain restaurants.
Oh,
Yum.
yum.
So we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay, we will.
All right, looking forward to it. Hit us up in the comments on our blog, modernmusings.net. Check out the links for any of the websites or books that we used in our podcast today. Also, check us out on Facebook, MMC Chat, if you want to drop a line there. And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.